On this edition of the Booth Review, 7-2 for the first time since '96, London.
Big win in the Big Apple.
And Jeremy Chin and Dante Fowler really showed up on the defensive side of the ball.
Oh, and we got a 12-round heavyweight battle for Big Fletch's Commanders Heavyweight Championship belt.
Maybe I'm the champion. I'm going to keep the belt on this edition of the Booth Review. Welcome to this week's edition of the Booth Review podcast, brought to you by Microsoft Surface, powering a better game. I'm Bram Weinstein with Big Fletch, one of the greatest linebackers in NFL history, London Fletcher. Off of another win. We're 7-2, London, a first since 1996.
Man, that's crazy. 1996. That's such a long time. I was on the last team that got to 6-2, and then we lost our game. We didn't the next game. Ironically, to the Pittsburgh Steelers, I believe. Didn't get an opportunity to go 7-2, but man, it feels great to be 7-2, to be sitting where we are in the NFC East. Also in the NFC in general, just a great team win, especially at coming off that emotional victory against the Chicago Bears on the Hail Noah play.
1996, I was in my first broadcasting job in the state of Nebraska, covering the Cornhuskers when they were a top 5 national championship program under Tom Osborne. So it's been a long time for me, too, to see 7-2 and the glory days of, obviously, the Redskins past.
Bram, in 96, I was still in college. Damn, you're old.
Older than you. Oh, man.
Yes, I know.
Oh, man. It's so funny. I've been, professionally covering the team on and off, but mainly on, since 2000. It's been it's a quarter century. Since we've had a season like this, and I'm not sure where it's going from here. I think sky's the limit for them. I think it's very telling when people look at the Giants' record. They have had such a hard time with this team over the years, and sweeping anybody in the division is very difficult to do. So it's a great team win yesterday, especially in light of what had happened a week ago, where we're celebrating a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
Yeah, absolutely. There's the old adage where records don't matter when you're playing divisional games. Yes, the Giants were 2-6 and they're having a tough season this year. But when these two teams get together, I don't care what the records are, they're always tough. They're always dog fights. They come down to the wire. And, that game yesterday really was a nip and tuck game for the most part. It was the Giants, even when they got down 14 points, they stayed to their game plan, stuck to it, was able to get back to within 8 points, albeit them opting to go for the 2-point conversion as opposed to kicking an extra point. And I don't know if we'll talk about that, but That's the Giants and a Brian Dable issue. But divisional games, they're always going to be tough, tight, back and forth type games. And regardless of the record, anytime you can sweep the New York Giants, that's a good feeling, great feeling. And I'm happy to be sitting where we are at 7-2.
I mean, I rather would focus it on us, honestly. But this is 2 weeks in a row where decision-making by the coaches on the other side of the field did contribute to the things that occurred here. Like a week ago, when Matt Eberflus is talking about it's not a big deal that Terry McLaurin made this catch that set up the Hail Mary. Well, okay. Or Brian Daboll going for 2 at 24-16, failing to get it. And had they kicked an extra point there, it scored the later touchdown of Theo Johnson, could have kicked an extra point to make it a 3-point game, but weren't in the position to do it. And then secondarily, and I want to get to this one really later, but the choice not to use a timeout before the 2-minute warning, which allowed Washington to situationally run the clock down and call a pass play with really no penalty if it were an incompletion because it was going to hit the 2-minute warning anyway. I mean, it is nice to be on the side of sound coaching decisions are happening here, and it is contributing to a lot of these wins this year.
Yeah, no, they're definitely buttoned up when it comes to situational football, clock management, whether it's end of half. There's been so many times where you've seen how aggressive they've been in certain situations, or go back to I think it was the Bears game, or maybe it was the Panthers game. No, it's the Panthers game where we're backed up and kind of okay, we'll kind of try to run out the clock, but Carolina didn't use any of their timeouts. They had 3 timeouts. Next thing you know, we get a first down and we end up going to our no huddle offense and end up getting a score at the end of that half. Just the clock management piece and the way Dan Quinn and whoever helps him with the clock management have been on top of that. It's definitely helped us be where we are in terms of 7-2 at this point in the season.
So I thought the biggest surprise of yesterday was after the first quarter, Washington had 1 yard passing. They had the ball for 2 minutes and 30 seconds of the 15 and were leading 7-0. So I want to start on the defense because it's a turnover that gave them the opportunity to do this. And secondarily, it was also their game plan. They wanted the Giants to run the ball. Like that became very clear. The Giants did, and were doing so effectively early in the game. What did you make of what structurally Washington was thinking about in trying to oppose the Giants' offense yesterday?
Yeah, after you look at the first game and you see Neighbors have 10 catches on 18 targets and over 100 yards receiving, it was clear that they went into the ball game saying, "Hey, we're not going to ask our corners to do a lot of man-to-man single coverage of him," and even their receivers like Darius Slayton, he has started to come on
Yeah.
as of late as well. So hey, they wanted to keep kind of a shell on top of the defense, play a lot of cover two or even quarters coverage where it's initially at the snap, the safeties are both in a two deep look, and then they'll rotate. One of the safeties will rotate down once they ensure that it's a run play. So they're a little bit later to the party when it comes to the run game. It's a way to get an extra defender to the run, but also show a safe coverage pre-snap. So there was definitely the game plan where, hey, we're going to force them to be a little bit patient, see if they'll make a mistake, whether it's a penalty or a turnover, which ended up being a turnover on that forced fumble, sack fumble by Dante Fowler. But it takes an extreme amount of patience for you as a defensive play caller like Joe Witt Jr. to say, hey, I know they're getting some yards rushing the football, but I'm going to stay patient. I'm not going to all of a sudden get more aggressive, maybe do a rotation where I'm bringing that extra man in the box, show single high coverage, and now they can go play action pass, or they know they got matchups on the outside where they can try to take advantage. So I thought it was a great strategy by them, and it took great patience for Joe Witt Jr. I also say from the defensive standpoint, as a player, it can be extremely frustrating for a team to be gashing you on the run game, and you just have to be like, all right, man, just stay patient, just stay patient with this, and eventually they'll make a mistake, which they did.
I mean, it is another sign of, because go look at halftime, they're up 21-7. It is another sign of stick with this, believe in what we're doing, because I'm watching this early too. Tyrone Tracy's become a very good, effective running back for them. He was obviously in question to play because of the concussion he had suffered the week before, but he was able to go. He's been very effective for them. They were running the ball well. They ran the ball well against them in week 2. And I know what a lot of people are thinking, because I got a lot of this from like fans who were contacting me during and even after the game. Make Daniel Jones throw the ball. He makes mistakes. We want him to throw the ball. But the first game showcased a weakness, specifically against Neighbors. So I'm with you here. In the end, they got this right. The point is to keep the scoreboard down, even if the stat sheet doesn't look great and it looks like you're getting gashed on the run. They invited them to do it. The Giants did it because I guess they felt this was their best path to victory.
Yeah, and probably the Giants also, they're probably looking at it like, hey, we don't want to put the ball in harm's way because Daniel Jones has a tendency to turn the football over the more you ask him to throw the ball, which is, he didn't throw an interception in yesterday's game, but he did have the turnover. So the Giants, they understand what they are and who they are, and they feel like, hey, their best path forward has been running the football with Tracy. I'll say this, man. It's complementary football. We talk about this, and we've talked about this a lot lately. When you understand what you have on the other side of the ball, we understand we have a high-powered offense. We're going to score a lot of points. If you can bend, don't break, hey, we'll tighten down in the red zone. As the windows shrink, we'll force you to kick field goals. We'll do those types of things. Eventually, that team can't just stay patient and continue to run the ball. They're going to have to loosen things up. They're going to have to try to air it out. Then you'll get your opportunities to make plays on the football, in the passing game, things like that. But that's when you know you have a great coaching staff, when when the head coach relays that message, hey, offensively, these are the things we need to do to win the game. Defensively, these are the things we need to do to win the game. And special teams wise, these are the things that we need to do to win the game. And that's a credit to Dan Quinn and his coaches for going out and executing that game plan.
I pointed this out to Quinn when I spoke to him on Friday, and I said to him, I don't know how you feel about rankings, like if they matter to you. But after week 3, and included in that was the win over the Giants, but Neighbors went off in that game. The Commanders had the 31st ranked pass defense in the league. Here we are in week 9 entering the game, and they were ranked 7th. Like the improvement was vast on that side of the ball, which does lead me back to it's interesting that they went with this particular game plan against this team, against a quarterback who is apt to make mistakes. You would almost feel like invite him to do so, but it's not the way they went. But this is why they get paid what they get paid and I get paid what I get paid. They were right. They had them in a position to do something that maybe at least initially didn't look like it was favorable to Washington because they were able to control the clock, but in the end, they couldn't score enough to catch up with Washington put up on the scoreboard.
Yeah, and even I've had a chance to rewatch the defense side of the ball, even within playing that 2 shell, and we say invite them to run the ball, and they were having success. I think they'll look at the film and say we could have played the run even better, even playing a lot of the initial 7-man front type of looks, or even when they went to their 5-down defensive front, they could have did a couple things differently, maybe play some gaps a little bit better, things like that to limit the success that the Giants had rushing that football early in that ball game. So they'll look at it and say, you know what, even with the game plan, they shouldn't have had the amount of yards rushing that they had in that ball game. But anytime you're game planning for a particular opponent, whether it's game planning for defense or game planning for offense, you have to say, okay, who are their most explosive players? Who can hurt us the most? Who do we want to take away? And in that ball game, first and foremost, you want to take away Malik Neighbors. He showed what he's capable of doing. If you give him a lot of one-on-one coverage and ask your corners to challenge him and even tackle him after the catch, he's shown what type of player he can be. You want to limit the explosive. Part of the way that you eliminate explosive is having a 2 deep type of look. Even when they did go single high coverage on some third down, the very first third down, they had a double on Malik Neighbors, and this was when he hit the tight end in flat. I can't remember their tight end's name, number 84. They hit him in the flat on the play, but they had Malik Neighbors doubled. They're like, hey, he's not going to be the guy who beats us in these situations.
I mean, listen, Jaden Daniels is clearly front runner to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. Malik Neighbors is a clear number 2. I mean, with the season he's had, he's posted some numbers. There's some metric numbers where he has more catches than any rookie through his first 6 games than like a handful of other rookies. He's had just an outstanding year. We've gotten to see him up close and personal. He's an outstanding player that we're going to have to deal with for years to come. He's an outstanding player. Let me mention a couple of players on defense and just get your thoughts on them. I thought it was really interesting last week. Someone asked Joe Witt about Jeremy Chin. And what came out of his mouth was, it's on me to send him more, is the words he used, and to give him an opportunity to make more plays because he's emerging. And then this has happened week after week. Right on cue, you'll hear them say something like this. He had 7 tackles in the first half. He was all over the place. He was extremely physical. He made a great play in pursuit behind the line of scrimmage. I believe it was on Neighbors, if I remember correctly. Ended up with 12 combined tackles. It might have been his best game of the year.
It was, and when you got a player like Jeremy Chin, and what Joe Wood Jr. is saying is, I need to get him around the ball more. I need to get him, don't have him playing as much post safety. Let's get him closer to the line of scrimmage. Let's blitz him. I saw there were several times where they blitzed him off the edge, and a lot of those instances in the past, that would have been Frankie Louisville blitzing off the edge. They put Louisville back in coverage and brought Chin on some blitzes off the edge, a nice little change up. And I think about engaging a guy, let's look at the analogy, whether it's a basketball scenario, even football, where we talk about getting Terry the ball early to get him engaged in the game. So when you have a guy like a Jeremy Chin, let's blitz him. Let's get him around the line of scrimmage. Let's send him to get him engaged in the game early. So now he feels a major part of the game plan. And you were spot on by saying that was his best game. He also did a lot of nice things in coverage in that ball game as well.
Yeah, we were talking about this all last week, especially off that hangover of the Bears game. You go watch the Giants; they're extremely competitive, especially on the defensive side of the ball, which I'll get to in a minute. This was not going to be a cakewalk. That record is not really indicative of how close they are in just about every game they've played. They were tied in Pittsburgh in the second half till a punt return was returned for a touchdown against them. They easily could have beat Dallas earlier this year. Like, they are in all the games that they've played. It's just their record is what their record is. One other thing, one of the defensive player, Dante Fowler, whose name is probably going to come up here later again. 2 more sacks. Disruptive play, gets a turnover on a fumble that he causes. 6.5 now on the season, so he's trending towards a double-digit sack season. This guy has really, over the last month, has really become an impact player for the team.
He really has, and he's playing outstanding football. And we talked to him. I don't know if it was last week or a couple of weeks ago when he talked about how he got off to the slow start of the season. Partly doing maybe a little rust, not playing in the preseason, but also I think he said he was banged up a little bit to start the season. And you mentioned the 6.5 sacks. 6 of those sacks have come in the last 5 games, and he's not just making sacks, the hurries, the pressure, the ability to make the quarterback step up and let other guys get to the quarterback. Part of, you mentioned our pass defense going from 31st after week 2 to being 7th, I think you said, this time of the year at this point in this junction of the season. Part of that has been the pass rush, being able to get more pressure on the quarterback. And, a lot of that coincides with the emergence of Dante Fowler and the way he's played. He's playing outstanding football. And, I don't know when the Pro Bowl voting starts, but he definitely should be, high on people's list as a Pro Bowler this year.
What's so interesting about him is we got to see him obviously in Dallas the last couple of years playing in this defense. And largely, he wasn't used as much, as he is here. He was more in a situational role. I'd have to go back and look at his snap count, but that might be a testament to the depth of the positions that they had down there and the pass rushers that they have. With when Dorrance was down there, DeMarcus Lawrence, Micah Parsons, maybe there just wasn't enough room to get him on the field as much. So when they signed him in the offseason, I knew what he was, and I knew what kind of impact he could have. But I perceived him kind of more as a situational player than one who's doing this consistently throughout games. And I apparently underestimated him because look at what he's doing consistently now.
Yeah, he's definitely playing a lot more snaps. And some of that was a byproduct of injuries. Cleveland Farrell got injured. He missed a couple games. Dorrance Armstrong got injured. So that forced Dante Fowler into more playing time. But to his credit, he's performed with those added snaps. And just his wherewithal on the sack force fumble. He talked about the quarterback being under center, and he knew that was going to be a pass play action. So he got off at the snap, beat the tackle, and he was right on Daniel Jones and forced that fumble before Jones could get the ball out of his hands. So just understanding, like, hey, I know this personnel grouping is quarterback under center. Yeah, some people might think it's a run play, and you don't want to just get up the field and create a rushing lane. No, he understood this on this down and distance. This quarterback under center, this is a pass look, a pass formation, understanding his keys, knowing what the game plan says. And he got off and he created that play.
So one more thing on the defense, since we're taping this on what they like to call around here, Tell the Truth Monday. I was a touch surprised at how effective the Giants were late in the game, scoring a couple of touchdowns to get it within reach. It never felt like this was going to go the wrong way, but it was a one-score game on 2 occasions in the fourth quarter after a couple of long touchdown drives and one play down the seam to Theo Johnson that I think that they want to have back. There were a few plays the defense wants to have back. So here's best case scenario for the coaches, right? They get to walk in there, talk about a win, and probably show a few plays that this team definitively wants back.
Yeah, and I'm not concerned. I'm not overly concerned
Yeah.
about the mishaps that happened in the ball game. And again, because I know this, they have such really good coaches on that defensive staff. I saw case in point prior to the game, they were working on the little hitch route that Neighbors hurt us with, where he would catch the hitch and he would reverse pivot outside and make the corner miss and was getting yards after the catch. During pregame yesterday, I saw the corners working on, hey, coming up and tackling that hitch route. The defensive back coach, he had those guys working on that. So just the attention to detail and making sure the guys are correcting potential problem areas. They do a great job of that. They'll do a great job of getting guys shored up and saying, hey, we even though we have a too high shell coverage, we still need to fit we can invite teams to run. Can't give up 9 and 8 and 10 yards on these runs. Maybe we'll allow them to get 4 or 5 yards, but it can't be 9 and 10 yards. And part of that was because maybe we just need to be a little bit stouter in our gaps, maybe play a little bit downhill a little bit better, and things like that. So I'm confident. I know this coaching staff will get those things corrected. They'll get the things corrected that happened in the passing game, because this is an outstanding defensive coaching staff.
Yeah, this could be an interesting test this week. We'll get into it later with the power run game of Pittsburgh, two-headed monster running backs that they have, and they've got a really good wily receiver in George Pickens as well. So it's going to be an interesting matchup this weekend with Pittsburgh. We'll get into that in a little bit. All right, let me focus in on the offense here a little bit with you. And I wanted to read this one to you because I think this is the game, honestly, on that side of the ball. Jaden made a couple of great plays, a couple of great calls. We had talked about time management and how the coaches really came to the forefront here too. We'll talk about all of it in a moment. But this is what really stuck out to me, because coming into the game, that trio up front was playing as good as any trio in the NFL. Dexter Lawrence is having an all-pro season and might be the defensive player of the year. And I didn't write this. The NFL wrote this. He was the league leader in sacks. If that were to happen at the end of the season, he would be listed as the heaviest player ever to do that. It's absurd when a defensive tackle leads the league in sacks, but that's what he's doing. The guy on the outside of him, Brian Burns, has been worth every penny over the last month if you've watched how he's played. And even without Kayvon Thibodeau, Azeez Ojulari, not unlike Dante Fowler, has had like 5 sacks over the last 5 games. They have been extraordinary up front, which I think was the big concern for Washington this week, with Cornelius Lucas unavailable, banged up players on the inside, attrition here. You had to handle one of the best pass rush groups in the NFL, and they can do it with those 3 and not bring a lot of heat. And then there's this off of the game, because obviously the offensive line and the running backs deserve a lot of credit for what happened yesterday on offense. Listen to this one. According to Next Gen Stats, the Giants defense generated only 5 team pressures and 0 sacks on 25 dropbacks, 20% pressure rate, despite blitzing on 60% of the dropbacks, the unit's highest blitz rate in a game this season. So they didn't rely on that front. They brought extra help, and Washington's protection unit picked it up over and over and over. No sacks against that group allowed.
Yes.
That's the win of all wins. And that's the film on Tell the Truth Monday that you celebrate today.
No, absolutely. It was a phenomenal job, first and foremost. I think you got to credit the offensive coaches, whether it's Bobby Johnson, the offensive line coach, former New York Giants offensive line coach. I'm sure he felt pretty good about having that type of performance in New York. And then you look at the Giants in the first game; they got 5 sacks off our offense. So to be able to hold them to 0 sacks and very little pressure, you mentioned the backs and the tight ends. They did a great job of stoning blitzers, picking up different line stunts, and just doing a great job all in all. Even when they had to just block one-on-one guys, and it's a credit also to Jaden identifying and knowing where the pressure was coming from, getting the ball out to whether it was his hot read or knowing, hey, I got protection here. I don't need to throw it hot. I'm okay letting this play develop. And there were some times where we went max protection, which on a deep crossing route to Noah Brown late in the game. I mean, a beautiful throw. Maybe it might even been in the first half. The deep crossing route to him, going great protection. And then the Olamide Zaccheaus play late in the ball game, go max pro, and play action and hit him on that play. Just as all around outstanding job in pass pro.
I want to talk about the running backs for a moment. So we pointed this out on the air a number of times. Chris Rodriguez had a devastating blitz pickup on Brian Burns, just an outstanding
Yes.
block late in the game. Austin Eckler, over and over and over, picking up blitzers, picking up the protection. To me, it was the story because this was the spot. If there's one thing that the Giants do really, really well, is they cause havoc up front. They get sacks, they blow up drives, and even though their offense is having a hard time scoring, it's kept them in every game that they've played, and they are a bounce or two away from different outcomes. Washington's running backs, and especially Rodriguez, who led the team in rushing in yards and yards per carry, and clearly was on point with where his protection needed to be, finding out 90 minutes before kickoff he was going to play, because when we left to get on the bus in the morning, I thought Robinson was playing yesterday. And then when he wasn't, it was a surprise to me and probably a little bit to Chris Rodriguez too. He deserves a tremendous amount of credit for being prepared and playing a crucial role in the offense functioning the way it did yesterday.
No, absolutely, and I'm sure it's difficult to not know if you're going to play in a ball game, not know if you're going to be up or inactive for a ball game. So you don't really like. How do you mentally prepare for that game? You know, the night before, like, okay, you have to prepare like you're playing. That's the only way. You rather be over prepared than under prepared, but still, it's like, all right, you know, B Rob, he's probably going to play, and then once he got the nod and said, hey, you're up, it's an hour and a half before the game or 2 hours, maybe it was, he knew maybe 2 hours before. Now you got to flip the switch and get into that mode and knowing, hey, I'm going to be up. And not only am I going to be up, I'm going to play a lot in this ball game. So being able to be on point from a game plan standpoint, that play where he had to block Brian Burns, that's a full slide protection. So the offensive line is working away from him because you're going play action, you slipping being sent it out to the flat as a fullback pass, and you're leaving your running back to block one of the best pass rushers in the National Football League. You have to be a grown man. I've seen so many running backs, lay that block, miss that block, get the quarterback hit, get the quarterback sacked, or allow pressure to where the quarterback can't get that ball to an open receiver. He ran up, cut out the thigh pads of Brian Burns, and allowed a window for Jaden Daniels to be able to throw that pass to Ben Sinnott on a critical 3rd and 1. I think it was 3rd and 1 situation, maybe 4th
Yep.
and 1, to convert that had that conversion. Kudos to him, man. And then when he had to run the football, when it's, hey, we got to grind this ball out, grind the clock out, move the football. He made some tough, hard physical runs.
I thought it was interesting too. We got to interview him and Austin Eckler at the same time
Yes.
after the game. They walked out of the locker room together. And I asked Rodriguez about the block that he made on Burns, and he goes, you know, the guy next to me, these are the cut-ups they show in our meetings, how he picks up the blocks. Eckler was outstanding yesterday in protection. He obviously scored a touchdown. They've asked a lot of him. This is again, the run game, even without B-Rob, functioned really well. There is a difference. I want to point this out. Like, go look at yards per carry and total yards on the rush, and the Giants aren't the best rush defense in the NFL this year. You see the difference when B-Rob isn't out there, but the fact that they can survive, be effective, turn to numerous different players to continue to run the ball, and to me, the most impressive thing, the protection aspect of it without him out there, is a testament again to the coaching and the preparedness of the offense here.
Well, yeah, no, absolutely, and you just go back that juxtapose that not having B Rob in the game against Baltimore and not having B Rob in the game yesterday against the Giants. The game against the Ravens, we only ran the ball 18 times.
Yeah.
Threw it, I think, 35 times. So, you know, that's not the type of balance you want. That wasn't the type of balance we had, get to that point in the season where we had so much success. Yesterday's ball game, 38 carries, 38 rushing attempts, and only 22 pass attempts. That's, running the football, being effective when you run the ball. You mentioned Eckler. He had 42 yards rushing. Chris Rodriguez, 52 yards. Jaden had 35 yards rushing. Jerry Nichols, 20 yards. So we had minus the kneel downs at the end of the game. We rushed for over 150 yards in that ball game. That's great production out of your running backs.
Yeah, last week they had 3 different players rush for over 50 yards. It was the first team in the NFL this year to have 3 different players to rush for over 50 yards in the same game. They were darn close to it again this week without their best lead running back. They almost did it again. It's really amazing. All right, let's get into the 2 moments that really, I think, stand out that everybody's talking about today. End of the first half. First, 3rd and 18, 1 timeout left. Honestly, I don't even think they were trying to get a first down. They were just trying to get into field goal range, and De'Ami Brown makes an unbelievable play to give them an opportunity. And I'm telling you, this quarterback, he snatches souls because given the opportunity, which if the Giants tackle Brown, he never would have got, he gets 1 shot at this with no timeouts, and it's a dart, perfect throw. You can't ask for a better throw than that to McLaurin for the touchdown.
Man, outstanding play. And as you mentioned on the 3rd and 18 play, it's just, hey, De'Ami, he starts off in a chip situation where he helps slow down the pass rusher, gives the right tackle Wiley a little bit of help. Then he goes out and releases in the flat, and Jaden gets the ball to him, and he got it to us so quickly. He allowed De'Ami the opportunity to run after the catch, and De'Ami made a guy miss. Now, I would have loved for De'Ami to get out of bounds to say the timeout, but he stayed in bounds and he picked up a few more yards. And fortunately, we had one more timeout and we used it. But as you mentioned, the dart to Terry, it was kind of a pseudo sluggo and go, slant go, but the back shoulder, putting the ball where only Terry can get it. And Terry had to feel great about getting those 2 touchdowns against Deontay Banks, who if you remember a year ago, he made the video talking about we're gonna have to deal with him for a long time in the division, and it kind of disrespectful to Terry. I know he's kind of hurt that we drafted a corner over him, and before him drafting forwards, but you got to sometimes be a little bit humble, be quiet, and Terry got 2 touchdowns on him yesterday.
He did. I mean, I can't. I can't believe this is commonplace, but the 4th down throw against Baltimore to Terry for a touchdown, Daniels, clutch moment, has to have it. The crazy pass he threw on Monday Night Football, getting hit when Terry's at the 20, that sealed that, which was the first huge win, really, of this season on Monday Night Football. The Hail Mary notwithstanding, I mean, yeah, there's some luck that goes into that, but he threw it 65 yards in the air, and it landed exactly where it needed to land to have the luck occur. This throw cannot be underrated. You mentioned the one to Noah Brown earlier, where that was between defenders. That was ridiculous, throw that he made. He did one in Cincinnati to McCaffrey on a 4th down where McCaffrey wasn't even supposed to be on that part of the field, but he found him and did this. The special plays that he is making over and over and over, and to do it with the time on the clock when he's doing it, you got 1 shot at that play to McLaurin, or you're kicking a field goal, and it's perfection. It truly, I don't even have the words for it anymore. It's really, really incredible what we're witnessing from him as a rookie right now.
No, it really is. And I've been around the game just as a player. I mean, I played 16 years, Bram, and I've had, I don't know how many quarterbacks. I played with Hall of Fame quarterback Kurt Warner, played with Drew Bledsoe, who was a perennial Pro Bowler. RG3 had the great rookie season. McNabb, who had been a perennial Pro Bowler, had some rookies as quarterbacks. And when I say, man, what I'm seeing and what we're witnessing is just so special. And, Kurt had that special season back in '99. Kurt Warner had it in '99 with the greatest show on turf. But Kurt was a lot older. He had been through some things. He had played in the Arena League. He, had his first year as a starter was his 2nd year in the NFL. So he had a lot more, stripes on his belt, so to speak, a lot more experiences. But for Jaden to be doing this just 9 games into his NFL career, I've never seen anything like it, man. This kid is special. And And that's an understatement to say
Yeah.
how special he is. And this is what I tell you, he's only going to get better. The more experience that he gets, like the more opportunities that he gets against seeing defenses, seeing the Giants defense for the second time, seeing these, we'll play Philadelphia twice, we'll play Dallas twice.
Yeah.
You'll see, all the different variations of defenses, and just understanding, trusting certain things, being able to understand what's considered open in NFL and what's throwing a guy open. You look at how he was in that first game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, where there were some guys that he probably could have pulled the trigger on and threw the football too early in that game, but didn't throw it. Next week, okay, all right, I'm trusted, I'm gonna throw it. Then you gain more confidence, and he's just gonna continue to get better, man. Watch out as he continues to develop in this league.
I believe it. I really don't think it's an overstatement. I think it's the best season any rookie quarterback's ever had to this point. And it visually, what their record is, how he's playing, what role he's playing, he still is in earshot of being the completion percentage leader in the NFL. If he were to do that, he would be the first rookie since the 1930s to do that. And those quarterbacks threw the ball 6 times a game, and the leader had 600 yards passing. I mean, like, it's just a completely different game that they're playing now. It's absurd, honestly, and it's unprecedented, and it's historic. And I think the thing that really gets me every time about it is when you bring these things up to him, or you point out these moments that we all know you played it, you were in it, you know how special some of those things are that occurred, how unusual it is for a quarterback to do some of the things he's doing, and he's doing it in his rookie season, and he shrugs. He's like, yeah, that ball could. Yeah. He said in the press conference yesterday that the ball he threw to Terry could have been better, that he was actually, it could have been a little more towards a shoulder than he wanted it to be. The Hail Mary, he had to at least admit that was unusual and special, but he shrugs at all these things. He is so medium in his demeanor. It's unbelievable that he is not sitting here. He has to know how good it is, but he just won't outwardly show that it's affected him whatsoever.
I think that's a credit to his parents, and I actually mentioned this to his dad. I met his dad a few weeks back, and I was like, man, you all have done a great job raising him. Because I wanted him to know, like, yeah, it's, what he's doing. Parents, I mean, players and fans, we can see the stuff you see on the field, the talent. It speaks for itself. But when you just look at the humility, and from the very first time we ever interviewed him, which was the day after he got drafted, just like, man, it was us, myself, Smoot, Santana, I believe, and Logan. We interviewed him. We're just like, man, this guy he is just so humble. Like you're thinking, okay, he's a little different. But again, this was our first time meeting him. Is he going to stay like this? And man, they've done a great job raising him. And he's, obviously not allowed the success he's had prior to this season, winning the Heisman Trophy and all other things he's accomplished, to go to his head. When you mentioned him talking about the play being a little bit, could have been better, that football throw, that touchdown throw to Terry, that reminded me of an article that I read about Tom Brady years ago. And Brady, he had already won maybe 2 MVPs, had already won 3 Super Bowls, and Brady still worked with the quarterback coach in the offseason. And they asked him, why does he still continue to work with the quarterback coach, even given all that he had accomplished? And Brady said, I want my throws to go from being 6 inches off target to 6 centimeters off target. And when he said that, I'm like, that's why he's the greatest of all time.
I mean, like, it reads like, dude, you just hit a bullseye. Like, and he's going, yeah, but not in the center of the bullseye. I hit it over here. I want it to be over there. And I'm like, boy, we're like, okay, great. I hope you do next time, because that throw was unbelievable. And just, I'm serious when I say this. Like, the Hail Mary it's incredible that it happened.
Yeah.
Those 2 plays at the end of the half were equally as unlikely as happening as one chuck down the field that gets tipped up in the air to go from 3rd and 18 to scoring with one timeout from the 18-yard line or wherever they were on the 40-yard line to even get in a position to do it, the odds of that happening are just about as low as some chucked up ball. It is. Like, it's amazing what we're witnessing.
Here, I'll take you even something that when you look at it, I don't know if you've seen it yet. Yesterday there was a play where they're bringing Ertz on a over route, and Jaden was about to throw it. He's beating him. He's kind of getting behind a linebacker, and I think the Giants were playing cover 3, so there was a safety that was coming down. That if Jaden had thrown that football, that safety would have intercepted. He goes to throw it, pulls it back in, tucks it, and runs for a first down. Like, I don't know how many times for him to be able to process that, like, he was about to throw it, he's like, oh, no, I can't throw it, tucks it back, and runs for a first down. Like, for him to see that safety rotation, like, yeah, I'm reading this hook defender. Yeah, I can get it over him. But the curl flat defender ended up dropping it. He would have intercepted that pass if Jaden had threw that ball. Just the decision to not throw that football, that's something that, I recognize, like, man, that's a big time play too.
Neo from the Matrix. He's dodging bullets. It's just wild.
In slow motion.
One other one. Yep. One other play I got to bring up, and then we'll move on. The winning play is the throw to Olamide Zaccheaus, which, like, in real time, even we were surprised at what the Giants did here. Under 3 minutes to go. They have all 3 of their timeouts. They're down 5. They have to get the ball back. Washington runs the ball for 1 yard. They got a 2nd and 9.
Right.
The Giants don't use a timeout here, and they let the clock start to run. Washington has to run a play before the 2-minute warning, but if they're smart, and they wait till it gets to whatever it was, 2:05, 2:04, and at this point, they've opened the door for them to do whatever they want here, because even an incompletion, the Giants aren't going to get an extra stoppage of play. So that's a question for them to have to answer to their media today. But the awareness to know that they could do this and then execute it and pull it off, another play of the game.
Yeah, no, it was the 2nd and 9. It was the ball was on our 31-yard line, and so first of all, I love the call. So you get in formation where, Jaden's in the pistol. You got Chris Rodriguez lined up directly behind him. You got your 2 blocking tight ends in the ball game. Everything says run. They go play action pass. And the Giants, they have to respect that pass play, but they run Zaccheaus from a slot, and he runs a deep corner route. It was like a 20-yard corner route. And even with the Giants trying to play zone, it's just extremely difficult for a defender to cover that much space ground when it happens that far down the field, where I think Zaccheaus, he ended up catching the ball maybe 20, 25 yards down the field. That's a void area, especially against the cover 3 defense that the Giants did. And you had a guy in the flat, so you hold up coverage. You hold the flat defender. You run a go ball, I think, with Diami, the clear coverage, and then you hit Zaccheaus on that deep corner route. Outstanding play, but also from a clock management standpoint, it was not a great moment for the Giants as well, especially when you had 3 timeouts.
All right, time to give out the belt. This week's championship belt for Big Fletch, whose last week's winner was Jaden, right? Jaden Daniels.
Jaden was.
I think he's put up a case to defend it, honestly, considering the way he played yesterday. He's up against who? Who you got? Fowler for 2 sacks? Dante Fowler?
I got Fowler for 2 sacks. So, so Jaden, he's the current champion. You got to beat the champion in order to, take away the belt. Jaden's numbers: 15 for 22, 209 yards, had 2 touchdown passes. You got to also throw in his rushing yards: 8 rushes for 35 yards. Those are Jaden's number in that ball game. As far as Dante Fowler, see what he did. Had 6 total tackles, 3 solos, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss. Obviously, the huge sack forced fumble that we recovered and ended up allowing us to get our first 7 points on the board. Now, Bram, this is a tough decision, man, especially when you consider how the Giants have been moving the football to start that game, to start the game off, and Fowler recognizing formation, recognizing that play, making that play, forcing that fumble, and then us being able to recover it and get that 7-point lead. The game could have been a little bit different if they Giants score in that on that possession. With that being said, the Week 9 Commanders heavyweight champion is and still champion Jaden Daniels. Jay's
I
gonna
knew
keep
you
the
would.
belt.
I knew you had to go this way because once we set up all the magic things that he did, you can't take the belt away. It might be a split decision. It's a possibility it's a split decision between the judges, but I'm with you. 2-1, he keeps the belt.
Well, even split decision or draw, he keeps the belt. He keeps the belt. He keeps the belt regardless. To take the belt from the champion, you have to beat him. And Dante did some great things. It went the full 12 rounds. But at the end of the day, Jaden keeps his belt.
All right. One other topic before we get to the Steelers, because I saw them on Monday night, and obviously against the Giants to get ready. But we'll prepare for the Steelers in a moment. I want you to hear one thing. I want to play a bite for you from Dan Quinn's press conference after the game last night on Terry McLaurin, who had 2 catches, 2 touchdowns, the 1-yard touchdown pass, and then of course the one we talked about a lot at the end of the half, that throw from Daniels, the catch he made on that side of the end zone. And Quinn was asked specifically just about McLaurin and his role on this team as one of the prominent carryovers from last year. There's not a lot of them. They're one of the prominent carryovers and what he's meant to the team. And this is what Dan Quinn said about it.
He's a real pro's pro. And we had somebody talk to the team yesterday, Bob Myers. And he talked about some people, about their role in winning. And he told a story about Andre Iguodala coming off the bench to go and whatever was best for the team. And then in that same season, he ended up being a finals MVP. But the message I thought that was so strong was, would he say the same things publicly that he would privately that was best for the team? And when it's really about winning, that's a really big deal. And that's what Terry McLaurin is, about winning. And he absolutely delivers. He strains to fight for it. I love the connection with Jaden, but I feel his energy. I feel his presence in the game, whatever it takes to go. But a number of different people stepped up today. But Terry's a pro's pro. And, man, are we fortunate we got him. He's been so much fun to coach.
So we talked about Bob Myers, architect of the dynasty in Golden State. And he brought up Andre Iguodala there. Andre Iguodala, who's a star in his own right for years, Philadelphia 76ers, became a sixth man for those Warriors championship teams. And he just described how, you know what, this guy probably could have played a lot more than he did, but just did what was best for the team, ultimately ended up being an MVP as a sixth man for the Warriors in one of those championship years. And I wouldn't describe Terry, obviously, as a sixth man. He's a prominent, player here as a number one receiver. But I get what he's talking about, where Terry is willing to put aside, I'll have 10 catches a game, 1,500-yard seasons, all for the sake of winning. And I agree with that. I thought that was a really well-put way to put this and what he means for this team, because it is what he's about. And I think it's what Quinn is trying to preach. And it's why, even though he's part of the past, he is definitively part of what this team's future looks like.
No, you're absolutely right. And when you have a guy like Terry who just regardless of the situation, regardless of winning, losing, losing season, winning season, whatever the case may be, catching 10 passes, or as in the case of yesterday, catching 2 passes on only 3 targets. Now, he did catch the 2 touchdowns, but 2 touchdowns for 19, 2 catches for 19 yards. I've been around receivers, especially number one receivers. They're so selfish. Like, they only care about their numbers. They're not about winning. As long as they get their numbers, and if we lost, they were happy. But if they didn't catch, 8 balls or 10 balls, and we we won the game, they're not happy. They're dissatisfied. They're grumpy. They're, just all they're malcontent. But when you have a guy like that, and when Bob Myers talks about what a guy like Iguodala meant to the championship runs of the Golden State Warriors, and what all he encompassed, and the winning, pedigree that even before they became winners, what he brought and meant to that team, that goes a long way. And I don't think anybody who's watched Terry play since he's been in Washington will say he's not a winner, regardless of what has happened with the team. So I'm happy to see him have the type of success that he's having.
I think too, it's interesting. Like, so many people have talked about they wanted Adam Peters to do this, so they want Adam Peters to do that, and they just want him to bring people in. And Dan Quinn has talked about, like, we're not here just to acquire talent. And Peters has said this too. We're here to acquire players that are going to, be in our program, be selfless in a lot of ways, and want to be part of the team to win. And you're just seeing this over and over, which is why I think they've maintained this discipline and they've been rewarded for it. Like, they have a lot of veterans on this team that kind of came in here, but Bobby Wagner isn't telling you how great he is. Frankie Louvu isn't telling you how great he is. Dante Fowler's having this incredible kind of 10th year breakout type of moment for him, but he's not sitting here crowing about how great he is. And we talked about Jaden, who's sitting there shrugging through the whole thing, and Terry, who I think has just been waiting for this, waiting for so long. He wants to win. He wants to win in this uniform, and he's been waiting for so long to have the opportunity to do it. And he doesn't need you to tell him how great he is along the way. It's really magic what's going on here right now.
No, it is. We didn't get a chance to really talk about Bobby Wagner, and I was just watching him, and there were some plays, some tackles that he made. I'm like, man, how did this guy avoid this block or change direction and make this sure tackle? He's having another phenomenal season. We knew he was going to bring great leadership, but the playmaking ability, the being that coach on the field and doing all the different things, but then also going out and having an impact on games with his play and his performance. And I think just the culture, you talk about, hey, we're not just acquiring talent. It's about building the team and building the right team, building the team with the right people, whether it's from the front office, guys in scouting, to the coaching staff, to the players, to the support staff. All those things matter when you're trying to build a winning organization.
Yeah. As you kind of look around the NFC, I mean, Detroit's done this. Detroit is front running in the NFC for good reason. They have a culture. Like, they have the people that they want there, that they feel like they can win with. You can feel that energy from them, that it's really internal and not external. And I think Washington's at the cutting edge of this for this franchise, because similarly, it's been a while since they've been a consistent winner. Fortunately, they have the history of having won in the past and having periods of time, which Detroit doesn't have. But there's a similar kind of thing that's going on here, where you saw Detroit do this. They've now turned into a team that's consistently very good, formidable. And Washington seems to be maybe a little ahead of that curve or a little ahead of schedule, but they're right there in building what they want in this building to compete. Hopefully, let's see where this one goes, but hopefully annually.
No, I think you're absolutely right. This is whether it's ahead of schedule or on schedule, depending on who you ask. As far as with Adam Peters and Dan Quinn, they'll even the player they might say, hey, this is where we expected to be. We knew we were putting together a great team, and I'm interested to see are they gonna is the team gonna do something during the trade deadline when you look at where we are 7-2 and look at the NFC as a whole and say, okay. It's hard not to say we're not one of the top teams in the NFC, top 2 to 3 teams in the NFC, and say, all right, who are the potential teams we could face in the playoff game or in the NFC Championship? Well, how do we stack up against them? And I'm sure they are, and saying, okay, what will we need to add to these pieces to our current situation in order to ensure or give ourselves the best chance to beat this team, whoever these teams might be in the playoffs. So I'm sure I want to see if we decide to do something. If they don't, I trust them because, hell, based on what they've shown and what they've done, again, they're only going to acquire the right people.
Yeah,
it's a lot of talented players out there, but if it's not the right player and the right one for that team, that locker room, that culture, then they're not going to bring him in, and I'm fine with that.
Interesting as we end today, we're taking on a team that's had a really good culture for a long time. Mike Tomlin, very stable organization. Mike Tomlin has never had an under 500 record. They're trending that way again. It's a heck of a test this week. Pittsburgh coming off a bye. I don't know how much you've seen of the Steelers so far, but what are your expectations? I mean, it's early in the week, but what are your expectations facing Pittsburgh this weekend?
It'll be a tough matchup, but I think it'll be a great game, man. You know, the way we're playing with great confidence. I think buys can be a little bit overrated, you know, in terms of teams having a little bit more rest. If they had some guys who were banged up and potentially would have been iffy for the ball game if they had to play us, coming off a game, but having that extra kind of few days of rest. I don't even know what buys now. You know, it's kind of midway through the season. Not sure what Mike Tomlin opted to do. Did they practice 2 days last week and then gave the guys extra couple of days off, or did they come in early? Maybe they'll have one more extra day of practice for us in preparation for Monday's game. But sometimes you can also overthink and overdo things during the bye because you have so much time. Coaches can end up watching a lot more film than they normally would, you know, during the week. The Bears.
I think the Bears did. I think the Bears did when they came in. Whatever they were running on offense in the first half kept backfiring over and over, and it felt like some kind of wrinkle that they weren't prepared to actually put on the field, and it was to the Commanders' benefit, honestly.
Yeah, and one thing about the Pittsburgh Steelers, they're extremely well coached. That defense is going to be – they got a couple problem guys on that defense with obviously T.J. Watt, and they got another edge rusher.
Highsmith.
Highsmith, he really gets out of quarterback, and they got really good linebackers. They got a good corner, Joey Porter Jr. So it'll be a challenge. It'll be a good thing, good challenge. But I know one thing: we're gonna be ready to play, and they better be ready to play too. So it'll be a hell of a football game.
Yeah, it's actually. I think Pittsburgh's secondary is probably better than New York's, but there's a lot of similarities actually between these teams. Yeah. Really good pass rushing front, very disruptive front that they're going to have to deal with. Very good running backs, good two-headed monster run game, and a quarterback who at times might give the ball away, and they're not scoring a lot of points. There are some similarities to the type of opponent that they're facing, albeit I think Pittsburgh's back end of their defense is better on the whole, has a better defense, right. But I think offensively, similar thought process probably for Dan Quinn and Joe Witt with how do we handle explosive receivers knowing that this is a tough run game that they're going to have to deal with this weekend.
Yeah, no, it'll be a great kind of week of preparation. That's the beauty of this game, man. You know, every week presents its own new challenges. That's the thing I like, guys. I'm often asked, what do I miss most about the game of football? And quite honestly, Bram, I miss the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday leading up to the game where I'm sitting in there, watching film, grinding the film out and trying to, develop, seeing how this team is going to attack us, how we're going to attack them, putting yourself into different play calls. And each week, this week we might have this challenge. We might have to stop this type of offense. Maybe it's a receiver that we got to deal with, a tight end. And then this next week, they got a Derrick Henry that we got to deal with. They got, whoever the case may be, you name it. And it's the running game or it's a running quarterback. So that's the beauty of this game. Each week, each game presents its own different challenges and situations. And I know they're looking forward to this type of game. And I'm looking forward to calling it with you.
Yeah, 4-0 at home. Can't wait to see what we get this Sunday against the Steelers. All right, that'll do it for this edition of the Booth Review. We'll see you next week.